Can you tell us a little bit about cut flowers and your favorites?
Sure, definitely. So before we get into the warm season versus cool season, that's kind of how I like to divide them up, just to keep things clear for people. A couple tips that I have for folks on placement in their garden.
Good, we like tips. Okay.
So number one, if you have a designated space for cut flowers, you are going to be more apt to actually cut them.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but another strategy would be to intersperse them into your existing landscape, right?
like
and they're
that.
beautiful, but then you're going to like that aesthetic value that they're bringing to your landscape, and you won't want to cut them. That's my struggle anyway, right?
I see where you're going.
When you intermix them into your landscape. But if you have a designated space where like, this is my cut flower garden, and the purpose of these plants is to be cut, for me to bring them inside and enjoy them indoors, I feel like people are going to get more joy from them, you know,
I like
with that strategy.
I like that.
Okay.
All right.
So give them their own designated spot. Make sure you have access to water.
Okay.
And most of these are going to do best in full sun, so at least 6 hours of sun a day. So those are kind of my top, you know, pro tips for placement.
Okay.
Now we'll jump into cool season.
Okay.
Cool season cut flowers. So some of my favorites are Snapdragons and Sweet William, and I've got both of them here with us today. I like to start both of these as transplants indoors before I plant them outside. I have them started right here in soil blocks. Now these are still a bit tiny. I would probably grow these on another, 2 weeks before they got big enough to put outside. I would want them to have at least 2 sets of true leaves. And right now we're at 1 set of first leaves and 1 set of true leaves. So they both need to grow on a little more. Now, as far as timing goes for these, we are calling them cool season annuals. Both of these are cool season hardy annuals. So we could start these seedlings in the fall, plant them in our garden in the fall, and they are going to overwinter our zone 7 winters, okay? They're not going to do a lot of growing, but they're going to be sitting there. And then when spring comes on, that's when they're going to do the majority of their growth and development. And like right now, I have some of both of these blooming in my garden right now. So you're going to get that super early season of spring bloom. But that doesn't mean that you can't start another batch in the spring, right? So if you pick the correct cultivars of each of these, they have some cultivars that can tolerate our heat of summer a little better than others. So for example, for Snapdragons, if I wanted to plant some Snapdragons right now and them survive our hot summers, we would need to look at cultivars that are considered group 3s and 4s, okay? Some examples are Rocket. That's one of my favorite to grow for the hotter times. So you can definitely do that, right? Most people think Snapdragons are early spring only. No, we can make it work, even planting in the spring. You've got to be careful on Sweet Williams because some of the cultivars require a cold period. That means you would have to plant them in the fall to get a spring bloom. But some of my favorite series, there's one called Sweet and there's one called Amazon that do not require a cold period. So we can plant these in this spring and we're still going to get summer blooms from these. So they prefer these cooler night temperatures that we still have in spring to get established, but we're going to be able to see their blooms in the summer as well. Okay?
Good.
So you've got 2 strategies for cool seasons. You can start them in the fall, get early spring blooms. You can start more in the spring, get summer blooms. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I'm writing this down. That's good.
So those are 2 easy ones that I, suggest folks kind of get into if you've not done it before. Easy to get up, germinate. I would start both of these as transplants. I would not direct seed either one of these in the garden because the seeds are so small. Okay?
Got it.
So when we're talking about warm season annuals, the stipulation there is that they cannot survive our frost. So we want to make sure that we're targeting either starting transplants or direct seeding them to correspond with our last frost date for spring, okay? And that's what we have going on over here. I've brought with us today some sunflowers and some zinnias. Those are my probably top 2 go-tos. If you've never started anything from seed before, if you've never grown a plant from seed, you're gonna have some good success with zinnia and sunflower. You're gonna build up that confidence.
Oh, that's good to know.
Also on my list of things that I say are kind of our gateway warm season cut flowers are celosia, cosmos, and then and all of those have beautiful blooms, but we also need some filler, right? We need some foliage to kind of mix into those arrangements. And basil is a really fun option. So basil branches really well. You can harvest it several times throughout the season.
So the herb basil.
The herb basil, yes. Even the bloom on basil, if you let it get far enough to actually create a bloom.
I've seen the bloom.
Oh, they're beautiful. Really? But let's go back to talking about when we need to, which of these do best with direct seeding.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
Okay, so all of these, the zinnia and the sunflower, could do fine being direct seeded in the garden. You could just plant them right out in there. They would do fine. However, I prefer to start everything by transplants, and that way I can place them exactly where I want them in my garden. And so that's what I brought with us here today. And I have started these in plug trays because they're larger seeds. This is our sunflower. You can see we have a lot of good, healthy root development. You want it filling up that entire plug. You see how it is holding all the soil for you. These are ready to be planted. I would not be hesitant to take those sunflowers out and plant them today.
So let me ask you this: what kind of soil media is that?
This is
potting media?
Yes. This is just a professional, like pro mix type kind of mix. Yeah. So it's primarily peat moss based. Yeah. And then I want to show you all the roots of these zinnias. So the zinnia, again, have good root development, not quite as much, but I would still be comfortable planting these out in the garden, even though the plants are small. I know that scares people. They're like, those are too little to plant outdoors, but they're really not. As long as it's warm and we've passed that frost date, you can plant these plants directly in the garden.
So do they have to be hardened off?
Yeah, it would help to take these outside. So hardening off is this process where I like to put them on my porch where they get some shade. They're not in direct light, but now they're being exposed to wind, right? So their movement, learning, the soil is drying out a little more rapidly, so they're kind of learning how to deal with that loss of water. And then I would probably do that for 4 or 5 days, then introduce them to a little more light. I'd like to do that on the weekend when I'm home, so I can watch them. So put them in some sun for, the weekend, make sure they're going to tolerate that, and then they'll be ready. They're nicely hardened off. They're ready to plant out into the garden. And that goes for both things that I've started in plug trays or in soil blocks. I've hardened off the soil blocks as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
that's good.
Definitely you can do your direct seeding. Again, you want to wait for your frost date to be passed because these are warm season. And then, but you could also start them as transplants. You could aim for starting them about 4 weeks before your last frost date. That way when the frost date comes, you can have a plant that's already growing, right? So that's going to speed up your bloom, because if you plant some by seed and you plant some that are already transplants, right, the plant's already growing, you're going to have this built-in succession. The transplants are going to bloom about 3 or 4 weeks before your seeds bloom. So that's a way that you can get this natural succession of continuous bloom all through the season. For the celosia and the basil, the seeds are smaller, so I like to start them for sure transplants and then put them out into the garden. But for direct seeding, sunflowers, zinnias are going to be your go-tos for first-time home cut flower gardening.
Wow. Thank you, Celleste. I can tell you like this.
I do.
All right, thank you much. We appreciate that. That was good information.